Some trauma comes in the process of development. It's something which we would be able to handle as an adult, but as a child we can't handle it alone, and we don't get what we need from the environment around us to help us to handle it at the time. Particularly birth and the first hour after birth, as we've discussed before, very important for making sure that we are on a firm foundation neurologically in our nervous system. So if the calming down process is not done properly in that first hour, you can have somebody whose sympathetic nervous system is chronically overactive. So above that red line and all of those symptoms that we were talking about there, restlessness, agitation, ADD type symptoms, problems with digestion, irritability, anger issues, all of those things are a sign that the nervous system is too active. The sympathetic is overactive. We're in a level of fight or flight 24/7, and it's not good for us. It's not good for our physical or our mental health. So birth is always a trauma. The difference is how it's handled and whether we're calmed down afterwards. In the stages of emotional development, we also have inevitable traumas. In the first 9 months of life, if our physical needs are not met on a consistent basis, we will have a trauma response. We will need to be calmed down emotionally if our physical needs are not being met. But often if our physical needs are not being met, our emotional needs are not being met either, and that can produce a lasting trauma at this very deep level of our psyche, a profound sense of not being safe being here on the planet, or that we shouldn't be here on the planet. Between 9 and 18 months, we're dealing with the trauma of separation. And if we're calmed down from that trauma, we become completely okay with merging and separating. If that doesn't happen, then we can have, instead of having a secure attachment to our carers, we can have an insecure attachment, either an anxious attachment or an avoidant attachment. We'll talk more about attachment styles in later videos. Between 18 months and 3 years, we're working on our sense of self and boundaries, and the idea that someone can say no to us and still love us. If we don't get the right emotional environment from the adults around us, if they don't manage to love us while they're saying no, then we can end up feeling like we have to choose between being ourselves or being loved. And that can produce all kinds of subsequent traumas in our life. From 3 to 5 years, we're dealing with the fact that there are other people who have thoughts and feelings. We're also dealing with the idea that there is a concrete, real world that we can measure. And a lot of people actually don't get enough emotional support to really come to grips with this. You can see this in political and scientific debates that are currently happening. There are some people who honestly experience the world as it's just everybody's opinion. My opinion is that the sky is blue, but if your opinion is that the sky is purple, well, that's just as valid as my opinion that the sky is blue. Now, that's an extreme example, but if you talk about, for example, climate change, and 97% of scientists are saying that it's caused by human beings, and there's a significant number of people who can quite happily say, well, that's just their opinion. So the idea that reality is an obstinate, immovable thing which we can discover and research and get closer and closer to the truth about, that we can bring our opinion in closer and closer alignment with this external, immovable reality, that relationship to the world is something that we need to develop between the age of 3 and 5 by having the proper emotional support from the adults around us to come to grips with the notion that reality is incredibly immovable and obstinate and our opinions don't influence it at all, and that The best approach to life is to bring your opinions into alignment with reality, not throw a tantrum and try to get reality to align itself to your opinions.